Boom.
Are you proposing taking away their guns?
Yes. Enough prayers. Time for some action.
You want to take everyone's guns away.
Bingo. Enough prayers. Time for some action.
We're going to take your AR-15.
We're not going to give up. We'll find you.
We'll find you.
You think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests?
Yeah. Good joke, Biden.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get to it here. This is Reuters.com, and the headline: July 4 parade shooting suspect slipped past Illinois red flag safeguards. And obviously, there's a lot going on. Obviously, the shooting happened, and of course, the online world exploded with all kinds of things everywhere. And there's a lot of triggering happening on all sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
And but let's just see real quick. Let's just run through this and go through a bit of a timeline.
There's some details that we need to talk about.
Sure. Highland Park, July 5th. A man charged with killing 7 people at a Chicago area July 4th parade slipped past the safeguards of an Illinois red flag law designed to prevent people deemed to have violent tendencies from getting guns, officials revealed on Tuesday. The disclosures raised questions about the adequacy of the state's red flag laws, even as a prosecutor lauded the system as strong during a news conference announcing 7 first-degree murder charges against the 21-year-old suspect.
21.
21.
They're always 18 to 21.
Somebody reported 22, but okay. Robert
I saw that too.
Yeah.
His age seems to change a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. But
continuing here, Sergeant Chris Covelli of the Lake County Sheriff's Office said earlier in the day that Cremo had legally purchased a total of 5 guns, including the suspected murder weapon, despite having come to law enforcement's attention twice.
Always the case, isn't it?
Twice for
this
behavior.
Keeps happening.
For behavior suggesting he might harm himself or others. I mean, it's almost like clockwork. At this point,
single one of these guys have been known to law enforcement. They were dangerous to the community. They were surrounded by people who knew that they were dangerous, and yet nobody did anything about it.
And again, this is part of the sort of worldview, narrative, whatever you want to call it, with these shootings that has been pointed out for a long time, but now there's like a critical mass. I think a lot of people are realizing, hey, wait a minute, how come every single one of these guys has some kind of prior run-in? The first instance was in April 2019. Emergency 911 call reporting Cremo had attempted suicide, followed in September of that year by a police visit regarding alleged threats to kill everyone, quote unquote, that he had directed at family members, Covelli said. Which, troubled teenagers can say stuff like that. Same with
Uvalde, though.
Same with Uvalde, you're right. According to Covelli, police responding to the second incident seized a collection of 16 knives, a dagger, and a sword from Cremo's home in Highland Park, Illinois, the Chicago suburb where the shooting occurred on Monday. But no arrest was made as authorities at the time lacked probable cause to take him into custody, the sheriff's sergeant said. Quote, "There were no complaints that were signed by any of the victims," Covelli explained. Later on Tuesday came a separate statement from the Illinois State Police recounting that the agency had received a report from Highland Park Police declaring Cremo a, quote, clear and present danger after the alleged threats against relatives in September 2019. At the time, however, Cremo did not possess a state, quote, firearm owner's identification, or FOID card that could be revoked or a pending FOID application to deny. So state police involvement in the matter was closed, the agency said. State police also said no relative or anyone else was willing to, quote, to move forward with a formal complaint or to provide, quote, information on threats or mental health that would have allowed law enforcement to take additional actions. And it goes into the background check here. 3 months later, at age 19, Cremo applied for his first FOID under his father's sponsorship, but because no firearm restraining order or other court actions against Cremo had ever been sought, quote, there was insufficient basis to establish a clear and present danger and deny the FOID application. Cremo passed 4 background checks in the purchase of his guns, all of them conducted in 2020 and 2021. Well after the 2019 incident. Well after? It's like a few months after, it sounds like, 2020. And it was September 2019 that drew police attention, according to the state police. The state police said the only offense detected in Cremo's criminal history during background checks was for unlawful possession of tobacco in 2016. And that had, quote, no mental health prohibitor reports. And then later here, state police said that when officers who visited the family's home over the alleged threats Crimo made in 2019, they asked him, quote, if he felt like harming himself or others, and that, quote, he responded no. Of course, when the police comes and you're, 18 or 17 or something, you're going to say that. Quote, additionally and importantly, the father claimed the knives were his and they were being stored in his son's closet for safekeeping, end quote, state police said. Quote, based upon that information, the Highland Park police returned the knives to the father.
Where's a better place to hide your knives than your young, violent son's closet?
This is an indictment against parents in terms of the mainstream narrative. Parents aren't good enough. They're not going to be able to prevent these shooters. The red flag laws, not good enough.
You've been kind of on that part of it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been saying that
part really bugs you.
Yeah. So this is all very useful. And then it ends the article here. A number of U.S. politicians in both parties have urged more widespread enactment and enforcement of red flag laws, which typically enable courts to issue restraining orders allowing authorities to confiscate firearms from individuals or to prevent them from buying weapons when they are deemed to pose a significant threat to themselves or others. But Reinhart, the state attorney who charged Crimo on Tuesday, was at a loss to explain how Crimo could be permitted to legally obtain weapons without the alleged 2019 threat and, quote, clear and present danger report triggering the state's red flag measures. Congress last month passed a national gun reform bill, including provisions to provide federal funding to states that administer red flag statutes. So that's the big takeaway,
Right.
Obviously, is red flag, not good enough. And, but obviously there's a lot of other stuff going on here with this, but that's the political front anyway.
Well, there is a political case to be made for this because of the legislation that was passed, the gun control legislation that was generally deemed basically harmless,
right?
Or at least maybe not harmless,
just not really moving the needle in terms of an actual, ineffective,
right?
Good word.
Which included a relatively small budget for states to help enforce their red flag laws. So this is a bit of a check mark in the good job giving them money to do better with their red flag laws. Because what we have here is a red flag law that was ineffective and it was unenforced. And so, those who passed the gun legislation last month can say, see, this is an example of why money needs to be available to enforce these red flag laws. Again, I mean, the parallels from the Uvalde shooting are explicit. You've got a young man, almost the same age range. We're working in an 18 to 22 age range with all of these young men. Not only that, but being known to police, both of them, and more, by the way. But both of them known to police, both of them violent, both of them not only having on the books, violent interactions with the police and family members, but also on the books, social media, violence, twisted, perceptions of what is cool and what constitutes being put on social media. I mean, what's not in this article, but is in many others. This guy was a rapper, and not like a famous rapper, but, he had a pretty significant amount of downloads on Spotify. And, his fan club on Facebook had 200 people in it or something. So not much going on there. But he had produced a number of music videos, and it's kind of this along the same lines. His music videos are violent. One of them is all based on like how he wants to shoot up a school. The other one, he's shooting. It's all very clear what's going on. The persona he's putting off, his whole thing. I mean, it's all very violent, very twisted. He's obviously a risk. Well, not obviously a risk, but he obviously has. He
was troubled. He was a troubled young man.
Yeah, he's a troubled individual. Now, of course, this is always the danger because you don't want to mess with First Amendment. I mean, that's protected speech. creating that kind of material in a music video format. But it's obvious that there was something going on here. Notably, his, has Instagram photos where has a Trump flag, and he's on a boat with an American flag. These are the things being shown on a lot of the articles, just to prove that he's a Republican and the Republicans are dangerous. One detail now, for those who don't know the details of the mass shooting, he had posted up on a roof and was basically fired into a crowd with what they're calling, of course, high-powered rifles, which is just a rifle that shoots either a NATO round or a .223, AR style type of thing. I had actually for a moment made a note of the actual weapons he had, but the thing that got me, that was another fascinating parallel to Uvalde, was he had brought with him two rifles.
One for each hand.
One for each hand. Now, I think this is interesting because if you are kind of a regular kid who's just obsessed and troubled and wants to commit violence for whatever reason, it makes sense to get one rifle. You have a rifle, you bring your rifle, you do crime. But to bring two rifles has this very strange sort of tactical advantage to it that I have a hard time believing would be such a parallel between these two shootings. They both had two rifles. Why in the world do you bring two rifles? Well, tactically, you just bring one in case one jams. You don't want to get caught having to, take it apart and make it work again in the field while you're trying to commit crime. So you just drop the one that jammed and you have the other one. But this is not something that would normally occur to like a troubled person. And that's, I think, part of why a lot of the, whatever you call it, rumors or conspiracies or pontifications about the more sinister, secretive MK Ultra type stuff. I also do believe that there is something that's not being talked about, which is it is known that the troll farms in China and Russia, which they do have troll farms. We have troll farms too, but especially with China, they've been come out and outright said, yeah, we want to sort of subtly disrupt the U.S. population from the inside out. And part of that is by encouraging violence, finding troubled Americans online and promoting or encouraging them to do nasty things. Now, this is obviously not just in the benefit of our adversaries geopolitically, but of course, we've seen this on record be done by the FBI. So that is, of course, always an option as well. Just a lot of strange things, Gons.
Yeah. So this Fox, just read the headline here. Highland Park July 4th shooting suspects' parents were a problem, says former coach. So
they always are, aren't they?
And then there's a New York Post article where apparently he was kicked out of a Jewish synagogue during Passover. Mm-hmm. It's weird because the New York Post doesn't really get into a whole lot here. It's almost like
doesn't say for what reason he was kicked out? No reason.
Just he was in there. He was suspicious. The rabbi kicked him out. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
is that supposed to be white? Is that the white supremacy narrative that they're trying to push or something?
He's a terrorist.
Well, obviously. NPR, obviously this mobilized the politicians on the left. Harris calls for renewing the assault weapons ban after Highland Park mass shooting. So that's no surprise, obviously. But this was really interesting because of the nature. You talk about the bot farm or the troll farms and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. This is from Daily Dot. And the headline here is conspiracy theorists blame Highland Park shooting on a CIA mind control experiment. And again, it doesn't help that the rapper name of Robert E. Crimo III was Awake the Rapper. And the music video you're talking about is called Are You Awake? I mean, can you not? It sounds like a Face Like the Sun video or something.
It's troublesome.
I don't like it. I don't like that they're using that. But anyway, here's what it says. 6 people were killed in a mass shooting on July 4th. Yada, yada, yada. Another 38 were injured. Police apprehended the alleged shooter. It says here 22-year-old Robert E. Crimo III hours later. Officials haven't revealed the motive for the killing. Theories abound, however. many based on Crimo's social media footprint, which NBC News reported includes violent and graphic depictions of murder, suicide, and death. Some of these posts include dramatizations of Crimo or someone else committing mass murder and being killed by police. One particularly prevalent and false conspiracy theory holds that Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, brainwashed Crimo. A fake Instagram post appears to have inspired...
I'm glad that they had enough information.
They just go right into it. Yeah, just all assumptions there, but okay.
Good to know the CIA didn't brainwash this guy.
A fake Instagram post appears to have inspired the theory. No, the Instagram post wasn't the inspiration of the theory. It just stoked those who have been pointing it out, but okay. Or maybe even discredited or attempted to discredit those who have been pointing it out. Inspired the theory that Crimo was in MK Ultra, a Cold War era CIA.
He was in MK Ultra, huh?
In MK Ultra. Nice straw man.
Described that way. It's almost like whoever is writing this doesn't actually fully know what MK Ultra is.
I mean, technically in the books, in the paper trail of the U.S. government that's publicly released, the program ended in the 70s or whatever, but we know that it's
and they love
ongoing.
to point that out.
Yeah,
that's their point. They're like,
that.
no, he's not MK Ultra because that ended in the 70s.
No, MK Ultra, the Cold War era CIA program that utilized torture and psychedelic drugs in an effort to control subjects' minds. Yeah, we don't do that individually. We do it societally now with social media.
Just simply take the lessons learned from MK Ultra and then just rename them under a different project name and disseminate them through the population. No. It ended in the 70s.
So the screenshot in question here is of Robert E. Crimo III wearing a very futuristic one-band shades, I guess, white hat, and then on the the description of the Instagram
hilarious
post,
the caption,
says, Robert _Crimo _ III, Robert Crimo III. Yes, I am a product of MK Ultra, and I am a liberal. Now this caused
I am MK Ultra, and I am a liberal. This is a totally real post.
It worked, man. Did you on Twitter the amount of sort of right-wing conservatives that were peddling this and like, oh, look, he says he's a liberal. He says he's part of MK Ultra. It totally worked. There was a bunch of people. They
love taking the bait, man.
Oh,
they take the bait every single time.
So easy. There are back to the Daily Dot. There are several other indicators that the post is fake. Most telling. This is the most telling, Basil.
Oh, okay.
Is that the MK Ultra program ended in the 1960s, decades before Crimo was born. Further, the CIA abandoned it upon concluding that it isn't possible to control someone's mind. Oh, really?
Much journalism. Such wow. Good job.
Yeah, and then they talk about Trump. Trump.
Yeah.
And then they talk about Ben Shapiro. Conspiracy theorists.
What did he have? They're getting into the conspiracy theorists. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. MK Ultra is trending, and then they quote a bunch of MK Ultra tweets basically. So yeah, very useful, very unsurprising. And to me, it's almost like I don't even care who did this, if it was a troll thing or if it was meant to be, because ultimately it is useful to control the narrative, to discredit those who would have genuine concerns about this type of behavior from our intelligence agencies, which we know have been ongoing for such a long time. And it's not, calling it the CIA is somewhat of a misdirection, I can say, because it's not exactly the CIA. It's just, people in the intelligence agencies, people in high places of government and power and influence. It could be the FBI, it could be any of these people, but it's not really, that's kind of the front. That's what we say linguistically to identify these people, but it goes beyond just the CIA. But
yeah, absolutely. Now, and of course, people might be screaming and shouting out there going, hey, Basil and Gons, obviously there's something deeper going on here. And we are agreeing with you. There is something going on here. And in addition to whatever else is going on, again, we have a failure on so many levels, not just to adequately recognize a dangerous person, even when they are brought to the attention of law enforcement, there is a failure of the community or whoever is around this person to intervene accordingly. If, obviously he was deemed a real threat. There is also a spiritual issue where this fella, not to say that he was a nothing burger as far as a rapper, but also not to say he was some sort of, even working musician, but had enough attention on his material and enough encouragement from the online community to continue to create content that glorified these things, gave an outlet to these things, and ultimately, I think, played a role in carrying out such an atrocity. And obviously wanted to get as much attention on himself as possible. I mean, I was sitting trying to sort of postulate why, if not sort of acting on behest of some dark spiritual force or some organizational force, either of which are possible, and so is both at the same time. But you got the whole idea where rappers, they need to get street cred, they need to is this a career-based action where people will listen to his music now, and sure, he'll go to jail for a while or forever, but he'll be remembered, that type of thing. It's also legacy. A symptom. Yeah, it's also a symptom of a culture where legacy is more important than living in a way. Yeah. There's just so much attached to it. But of course, the very second it happens, you got to roll out the gun control. The assault weapons ban is being spoken about again.
Yeah. I think that's politically in the context of politics and the election year and all that. We had the Roe reversal for the Republicans. And I think we might have the federal assault ban reversal for the Democrats. Little kudos
for it, for sure.
Yeah, for each side, which is hilarious because on the Wikipedia page for federal assault weapons ban, which a lot of Democrats are really pushing for right now, which was between 1994 and 2004, I believe. It says this is Wikipedia, okay? This isn't some, right-wing blog or something like that. The third paragraph under federal assault weapons ban, it says this: the scientific consensus among criminologists and other researchers is that the ban had little to no effect on overall criminal activity, firearm deaths, or the lethality of gun crimes.
Exactly. So didn't save anybody. In fact, the most famous, the sort of grandfather of modern mass school shootings happened right in the middle of the assault weapons ban, and that was
1999 Columbine.
Yeah, Columbine.
Yep. Trench coat and everything. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
there you go.
It continues, and we'll keep keeping an eye on it. It's a little early still. There's not more details. I mean, there are more details than what we told you here, but excuse me. But we'll keep an eye on it. So certainly, I mean, Uvalde is still. The details on Uvalde still keep getting crazier and crazier. We haven't touched that in a while. Yeah. But it is a full-on cover-up. Full-on disaster going on at Uvalde still.
There was that one story about the officer husband whose wife was a teacher. She got shot and she was talking to him on the phone, and he was trying to get in there with a gun. Yeah. And I think they arrested him or apprehended him, and they took away his gun.
Yeah, took his gun.
Come on.
All right. It's a whole thing. It just continues. There's more and more. We'll check in on it on another episode.